The road to Berryman Valley didn't appear on any GPS. Eric Walsh hadn't planned to be anywhere near it. His itinerary, stored neatly on his phone's travel app, showed a 3-hour drive from Milford to Grey Pines Lodge for a solo hiking retreat. He'd needed a break time away from the pressures of the office, away from emails and meetings and people. A digital detox, the travel blog had called it. But somewhere after mile marker 77, his phone lost signal, the forest grew thick, and the paved road narrowed until it became a forgotten path shrouded by towering firs. When the road forked with no signage and Citric chose left, assuming it curved back toward the highway. It didn't, for over an hour. The road twisted and dropped through a deep ravine, flanked by sheer cliffs and thick mist. There were no other cars, no phone service. The only sound was the hum of his aging Toyota and the occasional creak of branches overhead. Then, just as his nerves began to fray, the forest parted and revealed something utterly unexpected. A town it wasn't. Large, maybe 24 buildings. But it was real. A wooden sign stood at the edge of the clearing. "Welcome to Berryman Valley," founded 1892 below it. Someone had etched crudely in white paint, "No strangers allowed." Eric squinted. There were no highways or railroads anywhere nearby, no cell towers. The town looked like a relic from the 1950s gas lamps. A central fountain, colonial-era brick houses, and the clock tower stuck at 1111. He pulled over beside a general store with peeling, mint-green paint and climbed out. The moment his foot touched the gravel, the air changed. It wasn't just the eerie silence or the strange scent. Something sweet and metallic. It was the feeling of being watched, not from windows or rooftops, but as if the entire town itself had turned to look at him. He shook it off. "Hello," he called out. Nothing then footsteps. A man stepped out from behind the post office. Eric froze. The stranger wore a blue flannel shirt, jeans, hiking boots, and had the same short brown hair, lean frame, and startled expression that Eric did. "Whoa," Eric breathed. "You look like you," the man said with a thin smile. "Yeah, I get that. A lot." Eric laughed nervously. "Okay, that's uncanny. You have a twin or something." The man stepped closer. His movements were too smooth, too familiar. "You're not supposed to be here, Eric." Eric's smile dropped. "How do you know my name?" "You'll want to check into the inn. It's getting dark." As the man turned and walked down the street, Eric called after him, "Wait, what is this place?" But the man didn't reply. Eric's pulse quickened. He glanced at his phone. No bars. He tried the car radio. Static. He hesitated, then grabbed his backpack and locked the door behind him. The town was oddly preserved. Each building had a name. Berryman Books, Matilda's Cafe, the barber shop, not the barber shop, just the barber shop. Everything was clean, tidy, even picturesque. Yet there were no sounds of life, no cars, music, birds, just silence and stillness. Then he saw another one. A woman, this time same face. His face. She looked 25, wore a floral dress, and watered the same patch of flowers over and over. She turned slowly as he approached, her smile soft but unsettling. "Welcome home, Eric. I'm not from here." "You are now." He backed away. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. Panic bloomed in his chest. He reached the inn, its sign swinging in the wind, the Reflection House. He stepped inside. A woman stood at the reception desk. She wore a black blouse and held a guest book. When she looked up, his stomach dropped. She was him, again, not just similar, identical. She gestured to the open logbook. "Room 9 is ready. You've checked in already." Eric looked down, his name, written in perfect cursive. Eric Walsh. Arrival. Today. He stumbled back, heart hammering. No, I didn't write that. I just got here. You've always been here, she said. He turned and bolted. Outside, people had gathered. Dozens, all with his face. Every one of them stared, silent, smiling, watching. He ran to his car, but when he reached it, he stopped cold. The windshield was smashed, the tires flat, and sitting on the hood was another Eric, grinning, holding a car key. I wouldn't try to leave, he said. Eric backed away slowly, the forest behind him. But the woods no longer looked like they did before. In every tree's reflection stood an Eric, dozens of him, and they were smiling. Eric stumbled backward from the smashed car, his chest tightening with each breath. The man, the copy sitting on his hood, watched him calmly, spinning the car key on his finger. "You can't keep me here," Eric said. The copy tilted his head. "Who said anything about keeping you? You're already a part of us." Eric turned and ran, not toward the forest, not toward the town square, but into the nearest building, the old general store. Its creaking wooden door gave way easily, and the smell of sawdust and oil filled his nose. He slammed it shut behind him and shoved a shelf against it. The store was frozen in time. Jars of hard candy set beside the rusted lanterns, tinned meat, a radio from the 60s perched on the counter. And standing behind that counter, folding a cloth, was another Eric. He didn't look up. He just spoke in that same calm, rehearsed tone. "Are you hungry?" "No," Eric snapped. "Stop talking to me like we're the same person." The copy finally met his eyes. "We are." Eric looked around for something, anything that could serve as a weapon. Crowbar, a knife, a fire extinguisher. He grabbed a heavy wrench and gripped it tightly. "You're going to tell me what's going on right now?" he demanded. "Why does everyone look like me? What is this place?" The storekeeper, Eric, blinked slowly. "This is where you belong now. There's no outside anymore." Eric moved toward him. Wrong answer. But before he could swing the wrench, the mirror on the far wall flickered. Eric froze. The reflection didn't match. In the mirror, he wasn't holding the wrench. He was still standing by the door. Watching the reflection, Eric raised a hand and placed it gently on the glass. Eric backed away. "What the hell?" The mirror rippled, and then the reflection stepped out of it. Eric dropped the wrench and stumbled over a crate. The new version of him wearing the exact outfit he'd worn yesterday stood between him and the door, smiling sympathetically. "We don't like violence, Eric," the new copy said. The storekeeper added, "We came from you. After all." Eric's voice trembled. "What does that even mean? You were chosen. Or maybe you weren't. It's hard to tell anymore." The reflection copy said, "But now that you're here, we're complete. We needed a seed." Eric bolted. He hurled himself through the back door, out into a narrow alley behind the store. He didn't look back, he just ran. The alley twisted and spat him out near the clock. The hands still stuck at 11:11. The chime rang loudly. Though Eric hadn't touched a thing, the sound seemed to pierce the fog all around the town square. The Erics began to emerge from houses, businesses, alleys. There had to be at least 50,000 of them now. And they were all walking toward him. Eric's breath caught. He darted into the small church at the edge of the square and locked the door behind him. He shoved a pew in front of it for good measure. Inside, candlelight danced across old wooden beams. There were stained glass windows, but none depicted saints. Instead, they depicted him in a field of flowers. Him walking into a mist. Him standing before a mirror. Eric dropped to the floor. He was losing it. This wasn't just horror, it was insanity. There was no logic, no science. Just mirrors, doppelgängers, and lies. Then he heard movement behind the altar. A figure stood, slowly, cloaked in a dark robe. Eric stood up and raised his fists. "I swear, if you're another version of me, I'm not," said the voice. It was hoarse. The hood came down. It was not him. The man was in his 70s, gaunt and pale, quit, with shaking hands and frightened eyes. Eric had never been so relieved to see another face. You're not one of them," Eric said, stepping closer. The man smiled bitterly. "Not anymore, but I was." Once Eric blinked. "What does that mean?" The man looked at him for a long time. "They're not real. Not really. This town is a trap. A reflection. You weren't supposed to come here. But now that you have, it's only a matter of time." "Time until what?" The man turned toward a mirror mounted on the church wall. "Until you choose to stay." "I'm not staying," Eric snapped. "You think I said anything different?" The old man replied, "I was 28 when I found this place. Same as you. Same road, same wrong turn. They made me part of the town. But my mind resisted. I kept remembering who I was. So they rejected me. Left me to rot in this church. I'm the last one who's not like them." Eric leaned in. "Why me? They need someone real to anchor them. The town only exists if someone from outside believes in it. That's insane. And yet, here you are." Eric's mind raced. There has to be a way out. "If you're not one of them, why haven't you left?" The man's eyes dimmed. "I tried. Many times. But the moment I cross the boundary, I wake up right back here. Like a loop." Eric took a shaky breath. Then, "I'll find another way." The man reached into his coat and handed him something. A small, cracked mirror. "This is your test. Don't trust any reflection, not even your own. That's how they get in." Eric took it, then turned back to the door. The mob of his back outside had grown the old chapel door as the sea of identical faces stared at him through the stained glass. The warped images of his own smile, repeated in every color, looked like a kaleidoscope of madness. "They can't get in," the old man whispered. "Not unless you invite them. Not unless you believe one of them is more real than yourself." Eric looked at the small mirror in his hand. It was cracked down the middle. His reflection was split to Eric's. Staring back at him with a jagged line running through their eyes, he slipped it into his jacket. "What if I destroy it? The town, the mirrors, all of it?" The old man shook his head. "This place isn't held together by wood or glass. It's held together by recognition. As long as you acknowledge them, they grow stronger. If you deny them, reject what they show you by yourself time." A loud creak, then another. The chapels would groan under pressure. "They're testing the boundary," the old man said, his voice shaky. "They want you to panic, to choose one of them over yourself. That's when you lose." Eric moved to a side window. Outside, the square had filled completely. His doppelgängers were shoulder to shoulder, standing in eerie stillness. Then he saw it. One Eric was different. He wasn't smiling. He was crying, standing in the middle of the square, gripping his hair. And shaking. He looked terrified, just like Eric felt. "Wait, that one. He's like me." The old man grabbed his shoulder. "That's how they trick you. They show you vulnerability, fear, humanity. It's not real. It's never real." But Eric couldn't look away. The crying Eric turned his head slowly and locked eyes with him. "Please," he mouthed. "Please help me." Eric stepped back from the window, trembling. What if he is real? They all are, and none of them are. That's the paradox. This town is built on infinite versions of you. Some are brave, some are broken, some are hopeful, some are cruel. But you're the original, Eric. As long as you remember that, you can still leave. Eric turned away from the glass. "Then tell me how." "There's a door," the old man said. Not a physical one. A mirror that doesn't reflect. Hidden underground. If you find it and reject your reflection while standing before it, the town can't hold you anymore. That sounds metaphysical, Eric muttered. The man smirked. Everything about this place is. Outside, the door rattled again. Then a voice, soft, gentle. A woman's voice. Eric, please, it's me, your sister. Eric froze. No, it couldn't be Leah, he called. You have to let me in, the voice said. They got me too. I followed you. Eric's heart thumped. She's not real, the old man whispered. She's a copy, a clever one. But that voice, it was Leah, his younger sister. The exact inflections, the trembling hope in every syllable. They're lying to you, Eric, she said through the door. You're not the original. They copied you from me. Open the door, I'll show you the truth. Eric stepped toward the handle. His fingers hovered above it. The old man suddenly kicked over a pew, sending a crash through the chapel. Don't believe her. That's not Leor, it's your fear. Git, that's what they feed on. The voice outside changed tone. A low growl. You should have opened the door, brother. And then it was gone. Eric dropped to his knees. I don't know what's real anymore. The old man knelt beside him. That's the first step. Once you admit that, you start to see. A loud clang echoed below their feet. Then another. Like metal scraping stone. Eric looked at him. The basement, the man said. Together they found the hidden trapdoor beneath the altar. Eric pulled it open. A cold, wet breeze escaped. The stairway descended into darkness. Eric hesitated, then lit an old oil lantern from the church's supply closet. The steps creaked. The air grew denser at the bottom. A narrow corridor lined with mirrors, dozens of them. Some hung from rusted chains. Others leaned against the walls. Some were cracked, others pristine. And in every one, Eric thought not moving with him, not matching his walk. Each copy had a life of its own. One waved, another snarled. One sobbed silently while pressing bloody hands against the inside of the glass. Another simply stared, blinking out of sync. Eric looked away. Don't look at them too long, the old man whispered behind him. They're pieces of what you might have been. At the corridor's end was a full-length mirror covered by a black cloth. Eric stepped forward. This is it, he asked. The old man nodded. Eric ripped off the cloth. Nothing, no reflection. The glass shimmered but didn't return his image. Just a silvery void, like standing before a pool of mercury. Now, the old man whispered, speak your truth. And don't flinch. Eric stepped up, heart pounding. I am Eric Walsh, he said. I have no copies, no doubles, no versions. I am myself. The glass, vibrated. Then dashed behind him, a scream. He turned. The old man was gone. In his place stood another Eric, smiling. I never existed, Eric. I was just the part of you that doubted. Eric's legs nearly gave out. You what? The fake. Eric walked slowly toward him. Every time you questioned the mirror, I was born. I grew. I became real in this place. But now, you're finally ready. Ready for what? The sensation was like falling without moving, like slipping through yourself. The fake Eric reached out and Eric lunged forward. No weight, just silence. Into the mirror. Then, into the nothingness. With a jolt that felt more emotional than physical, Eric hit solid ground. His eyes adjusted slowly. He stood in an open field, under a white sky, no sun. No clouds, no source of light, yet everything glowed with a dull pallor. The horizon stretched forever, flat and desolate, with no trees, no buildings, and most disturbingly no shadows. Even his own feet seemed to hover over the pale grass without casting so much as a smudge of darkness. He turned in a slow circle. Nothing, just the haunting hum of absence. "Where the hell am I?" he whispered. Then a voice echoed behind him. "You're in the in-between, the place beneath Berryman Valley." Eric spun around. A girl stood there, 16, maybe 17, wearing a school uniform that didn't match any he recognized. Her face was familiar, but not because she looked like him. It was the opposite. She looked new. "You're not a copy," Eric said. "No," she said. "I'm the last original before you." He stared. "What does that mean?" She walked closer, barefoot in the grass that bent but didn't break. Every time someone stumbles into Berryman Valley, the town uses them to remake itself. Reflections, projections, constructs of your memories and guilt and secrets. They take your identity, split it into pieces, and make each piece a person. Eric's head spun. But why? What does the town want? "To survive," she said. "It's not a place. It's a mind, a consciousness, something ancient and hungry. It has no form of its own, so it becomes you." Eric's chest tightened. "So it's been feeding on people for how long?" "Since before it had a name," she replied. "It pulled me in when I was a child. I was trying to find a runaway dog. I walked into the trees, and I never came out. But you're still you, for now. This space, the in-betweens, where the originals go if we fight it. We refuse to accept the town's version of ourselves. But most people don't make it here. Why not? Because the town makes you love it," she said. "It shows you comfort, acceptance. People who understand you, praise you, worship you. It's intoxicating. It's hard to reject something that knows everything about you." Eric ran a hand through his hair. "There has to be a way to break it." "There is," she said, "but not from outside. You can't escape it like a normal town. You have to collapse it from within. Starve it." Eric raised an eyebrow. "Starve it? How?" "Doubt, isolation, silence. It feeds on connection, on the belief that the reflections are real. If you stop interacting with them, if you treat them like ghosts, the framework starts to break. But that would mean pretending I'm totally alone." She nodded, and meaning it. He looked around the field. "Then why are you here?" "I'm fading," she said. "I haven't seen another real person in years. The more I forget about myself, the weaker I get. Eventually I'll disappear." A tremor rolled through the ground. She winced. "You shouldn't stay long. It's looking for you. The town can't survive if you walk away." Eric took a step back. "Then how do I get out of here and into the center of it?" She pointed behind him. He turned now. In the field stood a single door. Just a freestanding black wooden doorframe, no walls. No hinges, its door slightly ajar. "It's calling you back," she said. "You've seen behind the curtain. Now it'll try something new, a deeper lie. Be careful, it's learned your resistance." Eric looked into her eyes. "Will I see you again?" "Only if you forget me," she said with a sad smile. "That's how this place works." He stepped toward the door. "Eric," she called. He turned. "One last thing. If it shows you someone you love, don't talk to them. School." Before he could ask what she meant, she vanished. Like smoke dot, Eric hesitated, then stepped through the door. The change was instant. Suddenly he was in a home. Not a home. His childhood home. His old kitchen, sunlit and warm. Smells of cinnamon rolls, radio murmuring old 90s hits, fridge humming. His mother stood at the stove, humming softly. Eric's heart clenched. "No." She turned, smiling. "Sweetheart, you're up." It was her, exactly as he remembered. The apron, the scar near her knuckle, the dimple in her right cheek. But she'd been dead for 5 years. He felt his knees weaken. "Mom?" She nodded. You always look so surprised. You're not real." "I remember the time you burned your hand on the kettle," she said, voice trembling. "You were 7. I held you on the floor and whispered until you stopped crying. Sis, I told you pain makes us remember what matters." Eric shut his eyes. This was the trap. She wasn't real. Just another piece of him, his grief, his longing, his guilt. "You're not her," he whispered. "I'm every part of her you carry. You don't have to be alone anymore." He opened his eyes and stepped back. "Go away." She flickered like a projection losing signal. The kitchen dimmed. The cinnamon smell burned into acrid smoke. She looked at him, no longer warm, now furious. "You will stay," she said in a voice that sounded layered with 1,000 others. Eric turned and ran. Through the house, through doors that kept changing rooms. His school, his office, his first apartment, then silence. He opened the final door and entered a vast mirrored hall, thousands of him, all standing, all still, and in the center. A throne made of frames and glass, sitting on Ethan Eric, unlike the others, cold, ancient, smiling. Eric stared at the figure on the glass throne him, but not when you stopped running. This version had a hollow presence. His skin was pale, stretched tight across bone, and his eyes were deep mirrors of black glass that shimmered with unreadable depths. He sat in eerie stillness, fingers tented in thought, legs crossed like royalty, like a version of Eric who had stopped caring about anything except control. Around them, the mirrored hall pulsed with dim light, reflecting the infinite Erics that lined its circular walls. Each reflection blinked independently, each wearing a different expression: sorrow, laughter, anger, madness. It was a cathedral of versions, a kingdom of shattered selves. "You're not real," Eric said, his voice catching. "I'm more real, than the you who keeps running," the figure said. "You think you're the original. You're just the latest snapshot, a flicker, a heartbeat in a loop. I stepped into the mirror. I made the choice." The figure rose from the throne. His footsteps echoed unnaturally, as if they passed through time as well as space. "And in doing so, you gave us form," he said. "Every word you've spoken here, every thought, every act of doubt, built this place. You poured yourself, cooked into it. You gave it shape." Eric backed away, keeping his eyes on the version that stood before him. "What are you?" "I am the you who accepted the reflection," he said softly. "The one who understood that the only way to survive this place is to become it." "No." Eric pulled the cracked mirror from his jacket, holding it between them like a shield. "I don't accept you. I don't believe you're me." The figure frowned. "That's a mistake," it said. "One you only get to make once." Suddenly, the ground trembled. The mirrored floor split, jagged cracks racing across the surface like lightning. Each copy of Eric lining the walls turned their heads in unison. No smiles, just silence. The figure on the throne raised his hand and the other. Reflections stepped forward. Dozens of them, then hundreds. They moved in synchrony like a wave of ghosts wearing his skin. Their eyes were empty, like drained batteries. Eric turned and ran down the only visible hallway leading out of the mirror chamber. Behind him, hundreds of footsteps followed. The hallway twisted and warped, growing tighter with every step, the walls turning from mirror to polished obsidian to something soft and organic like skin. The air turned humid. Breathing felt like swallowing steam. Then, up ahead, a metal ladder embedded in the wall. Eric didn't think he climbed. Rung after rung, his hands slipping, chest burning. He didn't dare look down. Voices rose behind him. Hundreds of him screaming, laughing, begging. It was like climbing through a tunnel made of every mistake he'd ever made. He reached the hatch and slammed it open. Light burst through Dot, and then Silence. He found himself in a room made entirely of polished marble, pure white. No marks, no seams. Tectu no sound. A kind of antechamber, a blank space of waiting. In the center stood one thing, a full-length mirror, unbroken, uncovered. He stepped forward. This mirror, unlike the others, did reflect him, just him. No delay, no distortion, no alternate behavior, just him, his messy hair, his worn jacket, his cracked lips, the dark circles under his eyes, all of it. He stood before it for what felt like minutes, maybe hours. Then his reflection blinked and did not stop moving. It smiled softly, softly, sadly. Then it spoke. "I don't want to fight anymore." Eric stared. "You're the real me," the reflection said. "The last one. The one who didn't give in. Tet. That's why we can't let you leave. You can't stop me." "You don't understand," the reflection said, pressing its hand against the inside of the glass. "This town, it's not just a place. It's a soul. It's made of people like us. Originals, runaways, broken minds. You're not a prisoner here." Eric shook his head. "Then what am I?" "You're the fuel." The mirror began to hum. "You don't realize what you've done," the reflection whispered. "By coming here, by surviving this long, by resisting, you've made the town stronger than ever before. You're the new foundation. No, you think you're escaping. You're building. With every thought, every doubt, every scream. You're not the last one. You're the first of the next layer." Eric's knees buckled. He clutched his head, voice cracking. "Then how do I end it?" "Break the mirror," the reflection said. "But you're in it. I know." Eric looked up. His reflection met his gaze. "Would you die," it asked, "to make sure no one else ends up here?" Eric hesitated. He remembered the girl. In the field, the old man in the chapel. The crying version of himself in the square. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the cracked mirror, held it over his head. The reflection nodded once. "Don't miss." Eric smashed it against the full length. Mirror. Shards exploded like light. Glass swallowed the walls. Reality screamed then. Shattered. Eric awoke in a ditch. The sky was blue. Birds, chirped. Cars passed on a distant road. He sat up, blinking. His phone buzzed. Full signal. 2:37 p.m. He stood slowly. A sign stood nearby, wooden, cracked. "Welcome to Berryman Valley, founded 1892, but below it, the white paint had peeled. The words 'No strangers allowed' were gone, replaced by nothing, just wood." Eric stepped onto WRH. No one was around, no mirrors, no ERICS. Just him, and somewhere far
Eric
behind
walked
him,
for nearly an hour
a throne
before
made
he
of
found
broken
another
glass
solar trucker
crumbled
who
into
pulled
dust,
over at the sight of his
past dirt-streaked clothes and trembling hands. The driver, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and a thermos of bitter coffee, didn't ask too many questions. She just listened as Eric muttered about getting lost, taking a wrong turn, and needing to get back to civilization. He didn't mention the town, didn't mention the mirrors, didn't say the word, Eric allowed. By the time she dropped him off at a gas station on Route 12, he felt grounded enough to call a cab. The driver took him to a motel 2 towns over. There, finally alone, Eric took a shower, stared at his face in the bathroom mirror, and waited. But nothing looked back except for himself. No flickers, no wrong movements, just his face drawn, pale, tired, but his. He collapsed onto the motel bed and slept for 14 hours straight. When he woke, the sky was gray. Rain pattered softly against the window. He pulled the curtain aside, half expecting to see someone with his face standing across street. No one was there. Still, Something itched inside him, a thread of unease woven into his ribs. He went to the bathroom again and stared into the mirror. Nothing wrong. He tried, blinking, waving, turning around. Quickly. Still nothing wrong. He chuckled to nervous laughter. "You're losing it, Walsh." He turned off the light and stepped out of the bathroom, then paused, behind him just for a second. He thought he saw a second silhouette in the mirror, but when he turned around, the room was empty. The following week was a blur of train stations, bus tickets, borrowed cell chargers, and silence. He didn't tell anyone what happened. Not even his sister Leah, when she called 3 days after he got home. "You okay?" she asked. "You sound different." "I just need rest," he replied. "Too much time alone. Got in my own head." But that wasn't it. It wasn't just in his head. The itch was growing, and strange things were starting to happen. First, the lights in his apartment began to flicker always at 11:11. Then came the voice on the radio, DJ announcing Reflections Hour, saying, "This one goes out to the real Eric, wherever you are." He changed the station, then threw the radio away. On the 5th night back, he went to a bar, sat at the far end, nursed a beer. 2 stools, Beth over. Someone sat down. Eric glanced, then froze. The man looked very familiar, similar build, same tired eyes. A haircut not unlike his. Eric didn't say anything, didn't even breathe. The man ordered a whiskey, then turned to him. "You ever feel like someone's copying you?" he asked, as if continuing a conversation that had never started. Eric stared. "What did you say?" The man smiled softly. "Don't mind me. I've had that feeling all week, like I'm retracing someone else's life." Eric stood quickly, left cash on the counter. He didn't look back. But in the windows, reflection as he passed, he saw 3 Erics sitting at the bar. He returned to his apartment, locked every door, covered every mirror, even the tiny one on the microwave. Then he sat in the dark with the cracked mirror he'd kept, the one the old man in the chapel had given him. The line running down the glass looked deeper than ever as he turned it in his hand. The crack shifted. Not grew. Moved. It curled like a smile. Eric dropped it. Glass scattered across the floor. One shard landed at his feet, reflecting something that shouldn't have been there. Not his shoes, but bare feet. Standing behind him, he turned. Sharply nothing. But the room had grown colder, the shadows deeper. His own reflection had followed him home. The next morning, he visited a mirror shop downtown. "Do you sell antique ones?" he asked. The owner, an old woman with a long braid and clear suspicion in her eyes, nodded. "But I don't recommend keeping too many. They collect echoes." Eric looked around. Every mirror in the store seemed to lean toward him slightly, as if watching. He pointed to one in the corner, tall oval mirror framed in rusted iron. "How old is that?" She hesitated. "Old enough to remember." Eric nodded. "I'll take it." That night he set it up in the living room. Then he sat down across from it and waited. For hours. At exactly 11:11 p.m. the reflection shimmered. For a moment it looked like water, and then it spoke in his own voice. "You left the town, Eric, but the town didn't leave you." Eric's fists clenched. "You don't belong here anymore," the voice said. "You're still building it." "No," Eric whispered. "I broke the mirror. I ended it." "You think one act of defiance undoes years of self-reflection?" The mirror flickered. Images flashed. The crying Eric in the square. The old man in the chapel, fading. The girl in the field, mouthing, "Don't forget me." "You brought us out," the voice said. "You gave us space. Now we need a world." Eric lunged forward and yanked the mirror down. It shattered across the hardwood. The voice didn't scream. It laughed. He moved out the next day. Took nothing with him. No mirrors, no reflective surfaces, just a duffel bag, and the name of a monastery in the hills where phones weren't allowed and windows were covered in thick linen. But on his last night before leaving, as he passed through a dim tunnel beneath the city, he glanced in a puddle and saw someone standing directly behind him. He turned. Only darkness, but the puddle kept rippling, as if it had been steeped in set. The monastery sat atop a forested ridge, shielded from the world by mist and distance. No roads reached it directly. Eric had to hike the last 2 miles, winding through pine trails, while the weight of the bag on his back reminded him of the weight behind his eyes. He hadn't slept in 3 nights not properly. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw himself, not in dreams, but standing silently beside his bed, watching. He arrived at the iron gate near dawn. A silent monk in a grey robe welcomed him without words, handed him a key, and pointed him to a cell room at the far end of the east hall. It was small, stone floor, woodcut, no mirror, no window glass, just papered lattice and silence. Exactly what he needed. Days passed. He fell into routine. Wake, walk, meditate, eat, repeat. The other monks never spoke, unless necessary. Eric appreciated that. He could almost feel the echoes fading from his mind, almost, but every now and then he would hear it. A second pair of footsteps on the gravel trail, a breath behind his ear as he bent to light a candle, a humming tune, his own humming coming from a corridor he hadn't entered. On the 7th day, a monk named Brother Caleb broke the silence. They sat together in the garden, trimming vines along the stone wall. When the older man spoke without looking up, "You carry a presence," Caleb said softly. "Something behind your shoulders. Something mirrored." Eric stiffened. "You've seen it?" he asked. "No," Caleb replied. "But I've felt it, a ripple in the stillness. A hunger that echoes, not for flesh, but for identity." Eric didn't know how to respond, so Caleb continued. "Most of us come here to silence the world, but you've come to silence yourself." Eric nodded. "I thought I escaped something," he whispered. "But I think it escaped with me." Caleb trimmed another vine. "Then you must confront it, and let it know you no longer need it." "How?" Caleb rose slowly and pointed toward the hills. "There is a place, the Mirpool, sacred, still, forbidden for most. But you may go. If it's truly inside you, it will appear there." Eric made the hike that evening. The path was steep and lined with twisted trees. The air grew colder with every step, the sounds of the monastery falling behind like echoes swallowed by fog. At the summit, nestled between 2 jagged stones, was the pool. Shallow, clear, still. It reflected nothing. Even with the moon above, the water remained empty. Eric knelt beside it. His reflection did not greet him. He reached forward and touched the surface. It shimmered, then rippled, then it rose. A figure stepped out of the pool like it had been waiting beneath the surface, dripping, pale, grinning. It was him, but not just a copy, not a projection. This one was perfect. Eric stumbled back. No, the figure stepped onto the grass. "Hello, Eric. Did you miss me?" It wore his smile, his posture, his voice, but somehow elevated, as if this version had taken all his strengths and magnified them, while leaving the humanity behind. "I'm not afraid of you anymore," Eric said. "You should be," it replied. "You brought me here. You invited me in every time you second-guessed yourself. Every time you looked in a mirror and wished you were different." Eric stepped toward him. "I made a mistake." The copy tilted its head. "Then make another." From the woods behind, more reflections emerged. Some crying, some silent, some laughing with glee. They circled the pool, dozens of them. All Eric. The original turned in place, surrounded. "I broke the town," Eric shouted. "You're nothing without it." "You didn't break it," one said. "You moved it," said another. "It's inside you now," whispered a third. They stepped closer, and then they began to chant low, rhythmic, imperfect. Synchronization. Eric dropped to his knees, holding his ears. But the voices weren't in the air. They were inside his skull. "You are the seed. You are the start. You are the we. You are the part," he screamed. The pool began to boil. Then he remembered the girl, the last original before him. She'd said something. "Don't talk to them. Don't respond. Every time you acknowledge them, you feed them." Eric forced his lips shut. Tight, he stood slowly, staring at the perfect version of himself. He did not speak, did not flinch. The chanting faltered. A fuse of reflections glanced at each other. The perfect one leaned in, smiling tighter. "Don't you want to know who you really are?" Eric said nothing. "I can show you." Silence. The copies stopped moving. One by one, they blinked out. Like vanishing signals, the pool cooled. The forest fell still. The final reflection. Perfect Eric stepped back into the pool. "You'll see me again," he whispered. Eric didn't answer. The water settled, still, silent, empty, for the first time. It reflected him, only him, when he returned to the monastery. Caleb was waiting at the gate. It had been 40 days. Eric he no longer flinched when catching his reflection in a basin of water. "You are quieter." The echo that once followed him with heavy footsteps, and for the first time in weeks, silent. He smiled. The tension between the bones in his spine, always taut, always ready for fight or flight, had loosened like a finally released spring. The monastery became more than a refuge. It became a rhythm. A world without mirrors, without names, without identity beyond presence. He learned to rake sand into flowing patterns, to listen to wind like language, to breathe in without fear that the next inhale would bring a stranger's breath. But the question never left him. Did I escape? Or did I bury it? He was raking the meditation garden at dusk when Caleb approached. The monk stood behind him for a long moment before speaking. "There's a visitor," Caleb said. Eric frowned. "Visitor," Caleb nodded. "A woman. She asked for you by name." No one knew where he was. He hadn't told anyone, not even Leah. Eric followed Caleb to the stone path just beyond the gates. A woman stood there, early 20s, worn jeans, hiking boots, mud up to her ankles, and a look in her eyes that Eric knew too well. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Hi," she said. Eric's breath caught in his throat. It was the girl from the field, but younger. "I understand." She stepped forward, trembling. "I followed the trail off Route 17, just like you said in your interview." "What interview?" "The podcast," she said. "Disappearances and doubles. You were on the episode last week. You told your story." Eric backed up a step. "I never know. I didn't." Her brow furrowed. "See." She pulled out her phone, scrolling, then playing a voice clip. It was him, his voice, describing Berryman Valley, the chapel, the mirrors, the throne of glass. Verbatim. "I never recorded that," he whispered. "But it's you. Your voice." He felt the old air again. That cold, that silence, that weight. She stepped closer, desperate. I think it's starting with me. I see myself in puddles now. I heard myself humming behind the bathroom door last night. I'm scared." Eric stared at her. He didn't know what to say. And then she pulled something from her pocket. A small, cracked mirror. Same shape, same crack, same line running through it like a crooked smile. "They mailed this to me." She whispered no return. Address. Just a note that said, "You're next." Eric stared at it. The crack shifted, just slightly. then settled. Calem's voice was suddenly behind him. It followed you, after all. Eric turned slowly. What do I do? The girl asked, eyes wide. Eric looked between her and the mirror. His reflection flickered in it just once, and it was smiling. I don't know, Eric said softly. But he did. Not out loud, not in words. He felt it, like cold fingers gripping the edges of his thoughts. Berriman Valley had never been a place. It was a pattern, a virus of the self, and now that it had been spoken, broadcast, believed it could rebuild anywhere. Who heard it could become it. He stepped away from the girl. You can't stay here. But this place is still clean, Eric said. For now. But if you brought that here. He nodded toward the mirror in her hand. Then, it's already begun. Calem placed a hand on her shoulder, gently guiding her away from the gate. There's a town not far from here, he said, with a chapel. No mirrors. Stay there for now. Don't speak of this place. Don't speak of what you saw. Not to anyone. The girl nodded slowly as she turned to leave. Eric called after her. Don't answer your reflection. She looked back. It'll lie to you, he said. It always does. That night, Eric didn't sleep. He sat alone in his room, facing the papered wall, listening to the wind crawl across the stone. And just before midnight, he heard it from inside the cupboard, a voice whispering Eric. He rose slowly, opened the door. Nothing but resting on the shelfer, small piece of broken glass, dot triangular, sharp, reflective. He picked it up, and for a second, in its surface he saw 3 Erics, one sleeping, one smiling, one watching. He dropped it, stared at it on the floor, then turned out the lamp. The end.